Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to The Last Ego on Earth. My name is James Scott Shoemaker, and my co-host Steven Gable and I would like to welcome you here to our Joining Zoom call. This Zoom call was very special, especially for me. We had our surprise guest unveiled, which is Gary Renard. And Gary Renard, of course, is the author of The Disappearance of the Universe, Your Immortal Reality, Love Has Forgotten No One, and The Lifetimes That Jesus and Buddha Knew Each Other. All of those books are absolutely wonderful. For me, the Course of Miracles and The Disappearance of the Universe came at the very same time for me. One was handed to me, I checked the mail, and The Disappearance of the Universe, which I didn't know were connected at all, was in my mailbox. So for me, this is just such a landmark for me for 10 years to have Gary Renard, really just a household name here. My wife and I both do the course, and we speak of Gary like he's a household member, like Gary would do this, or Gary said this, or Gary or Art and Persia said that. So it's just really neat to see this full circle, and 10 years later to actually have him on The Last Ego was so special for me. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. Give us a like, give us a share. It's all about the joining, and the comments and the connection that I've been making lately has just been absolutely extraordinary. And I love each and every one of you, and I love connecting. So if you need help with the course, have questions about it, feel free to ask. I'm there for you. So peace be with you. I love you, and I will see you guys on the other side. All right.
Okay. All right. Everyone's gonna pop in now.
All right.
Yay.
Hey, Mary.
Hey, I was in the waiting room for 15 minutes. I was wondering.
Yeah, we got it been setting up here, so thanks for being patient there. Awesome. You having a good week there, Mary?
Yeah, good, thanks. And you? Is the guest speaker coming?
I think so.
Guest speaker is right here now, but it's still a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Okay.
Hello, Eli. Nice to see you for the first time.
Hi.
Hello.
I wasn't sure if I'd be here or not, but here I am.
Well, I'm really glad you made it.
Hey,
Fantastic.
I put pause on Bohemian Rhapsody so I could be here.
Oh, there you go. Put that on pause. Right. Well, we appreciate that. We really appreciate that. Thank you. All right, we're gonna. It's just hitting 11 now, but we're gonna wait to see if anybody else shows up. I know I had a bunch of messages of a lot of people saying that they were not going to be able to make it, so that's kind of a bummer. But
that is a bummer.
I think we're gonna make the best of it, though. We're gonna make the best of it. Was that John's voice? Did I hear there?
Yeah, John.
That is John's voice you heard.
John the Blessed. Hey, John, how you doing, buddy? Sandra.
What?
Hello.
Hello.
Sandra. Good morning.
Oh, and there's Zake. Look at Zake. He is just chilling. Hey, buddy, how are you? How's Africa going?
We are trying our best.
It's going well? Good, buddy. So, okay, guys, we're just going to do a few more minutes. I know there's just a couple other people that said that they were going to be here at the start here.
Hey, John, I was asked to pass a message along to you. Last week, I mentioned to you about Tom Peters, and you said you knew him.
Yes.
He passed away a week ago.
Oh, wow.
I was just calling his phone 2 days ago. After you said that, I called his phone number that I had, and didn't get an answer.
Yeah, I guess his heart got too weak. I just found out today.
Wow, we'll have to put our prayers out to him, his family.
Yeah, thanks. It was apparently last weekend.
Oh, wow, we got Michael on and Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for everybody being so patient here at the beginning, getting everybody in the room. It's always kind of shaky here a little bit at the beginning, but we're getting there. I think we got a really good surprise for you guys here today. I'm kind of holding back here of the excitement. I really am. It's really pretty cool. I know some of you guys already know, some of you don't. Hopefully there's a great mixture of the two. All right. Well, I guess what we'll do is just say hi for one. Is there, everybody have a good week so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good, good. Lots of good forgiveness going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Always, right? Let's see here.
Always.
Someone's having a bad day. We'll have to forgive that.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that wasn't at your house, John, right? You're good? Okay, guys. Oh, hey, Michael. Good to see you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a couple weeks.
Mm. All
right, Steve, are we looking good in the guest room there, buddy?
Yeah, no one else here. Everyone at this point is muted, except for you and I.
Hi, Miss Judy. Mwah. Look at you. Oh, and hi, Lori. Good to see you. All right, guys, I guess we'll get started. So, normally, I think you know that there's a surprise. Normally, I do a reading from the course, but today, what I was going to do is Steven, my co-host here, Steven Gable, gave me this little box of cards of the Course of Miracles cards, and I thought what would be fun is I'll just randomly pick a card to read, and then I'll pick one of you guys to kind of give your thoughts about this card. And I think that would be kind of neat. That way we can just kind of let Spirit lead the way. So I'm going to choose a card here. All right, here we go, guys. Be certain any answer to a problem the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. All right, I'm going to read it one more time just to make sure. Here we go. So be certain any answer to a problem the Holy Spirit solves will always be one in which no one loses. All right, I'm going to randomly pick somebody. I'm going to use Spirit here. Let's see. All right, I think I'm going to choose our mystery guest.
Good idea. Thank you, Spirit.
Thank you, Spirit, for choosing that for us.
Oh.
Hey, buddy.
Hey. Mystery guest.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Wait a minute. Is this Gary Renard, author?
I don't know. Let me check. Yeah.
That's right, guys. Gary Renard, the author of The Disappearance of the Universe. Let's see if I can get all these right. Your Immortal Reality, Love Has Forgotten No One, and The Lifetimes Jesus and Buddha Knew Each Other. Is that you,
That's right.
sir?
That's right.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Well, we are honored to have you here, buddy.
Well, it's great to be here. And yeah, I was there when those books were written, but it wasn't me. But it's okay. I get to keep the royalties anyway.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Last Ego on Earth Zoom call. We do these every Friday, and early on when I first started the Last Ego on Earth, I asked you if you could be a part of it, and you were so graciously to say yes. And now 6 months later, here you are, and I am just on the floor with excitement, man. This is just such a wonderful moment for me. I'm just going to really quickly say how much you've changed my life. When I was in a deep state of fear 10 years ago, I had an inner asking, and I asked Jesus if he could help me. The Course of Miracles showed up at my doorstep, and in my mailbox that very same day was The Disappearance of the Universe. And I didn't know they were connected at all. And you sent me down a road. I read The Disappearance of the Universe first, and of course it helped me in all ways. And I want to thank you. very, very much for being here, buddy.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. It means a lot to me. And I've always been amazed by all the different connections that have been going on ever since the book came out, about 17.
Half an error.
Guys, can we get everybody to mute? I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's been just amazing to me, all the different people who have met because of the books. We did a thing here last Christmas, and we called it a family workshop. And it was me and Cindy, her mom, her sister Jackie, our brother-in-law Mark, and intimate group of people. And we went out to dinner after, and there were 24 people at dinner. And we were on the way there, and I don't know if Giddy Up Mikey from Facebook, but
yes,
he turned to me and he said, there are 24 people at this dinner, and none of them would know each other if it wasn't for the disappearance of the universe. All 24 of these people have met because of the book, including Cindy's sister and her husband.
Right.
I mean, it's just always amazed me, all of these connections. So I'm very grateful. I mean, the Holy Spirit can see everything. We just see a little piece of the puzzle, but the Holy Spirit can see everything that ever happened, and the Holy Spirit can see how it all fits together. We can't see the Holy Spirit's plan. We can't see the whole thing, but the Holy Spirit can see everything that ever happened, from like the beginning of time to the end of time. And the Course talks about this interlocking chain of forgiveness and how it all fits together. And sometimes I can really see that. It's just like the manual for teachers says, the script is written. Those who are to meet shall meet, because together they have the potential for a holy relationship. And nobody meets by accident. Nobody reads a book by accident. Nobody finds A Course in Miracles by accident. It's all set up ahead of time by the Holy Spirit. And I just love to watch it, and just to be a small part of it, really is a lot of fun. It's very exciting.
It does get to that point where it's just every day is like, wake up, what's going to happen next? I mean, this day is just one of those days, it's like, what is going to happen next? I don't know, but I'm very excited. There's that butterfly feeling at first, like, is it going to go wrong? All these things. And then if you let go, the miracles start unfolding. And, what I found, every call, everything, when you're open to Spirit, how the joining starts happening, the connection with all the other Christ minds starts showing up. And that's what's so beautiful about it all.
Yeah, I know how you feel about things going right, because I used to be a musician, and we never worried about playing or how we would do, but we always worried about the technical things.
Right.
It was always the technical things. Whatever could go wrong would go wrong. And it's the same with all of the Zoom things, especially since that's mostly what we're doing nowadays. It's hard to do things in person. I've only done 2 in-person things this year, where I usually do about 20. So we've come to rely on technology. And, if anything goes wrong with the technical aspects of it, then you can't do it. So we're actually more concerned about that nowadays than we are what we're going to say or what we're going to do. That's up to the Holy Spirit. So we just have to, pray that the technical aspects of it go without a hitch.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what I'll do here is I'm going to start off with me and Steven asking a question for you, and then we're just going to kind of open the room. And if anybody wants to ask a question, just raise your hand and I'll just randomly choose. So Gary, the first question I have for you, and I had to think long and hard on this one, but one of the questions I get a lot from new students for the course is how not to put it down. When you're first learning the course, things start rearing up with the ego. And the first thing your ego mind wants to do is just put it on a bookshelf and just leave it alone. Do you have any advice for new students to not do that, to actually move forward with it? And what techniques would you suggest for that?
Sure. First of all, remember, if you put it down, you're not guilty. It's okay.
Right, that's true.
I was friends with Ken Wapnick, the teacher, and I said, I don't always do it right. And he said, look, a good Course in Miracles student is a bad Course in Miracles student who forgives himself. So you don't have to get it just right all the time. I talk to people sometimes, they're doing the workbook and they'll do 90 lessons and they'll say, I'm not doing it right, I'm going to start all over. And I say, no, don't do that. That's the ego trying to trick you into not doing it. Keep going. Don't stop, persevere. Now, perseverance is probably one of the most important qualities of actually doing the course. But that's a matter of motivation. And nobody can give you that motivation. That's the one thing that you really have to supply the most. And I think the only way that you have that motivation is that you've got to really want it. You've got to really want the results of the course. You want to be more peaceful. You want to be able to be guided by the Holy Spirit in undoing the ego. You want to change your experience from the experience of being a body to the experience of being what you really are and where you really are, which is completely unlimited. What you really are is something that is immortal. It's invulnerable. It's something that can't be threatened by anything in this world. It's something that is bigger than the universe of time and space. And you can actually change your experience gradually. This happens very gradually, because if it happened all at once, you'd probably shit a brick. Because you have to be prepared for a different life form. It's like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. It undergoes a complete metamorphosis and actually changes life forms to a freer and a less restricted way of being. But you have to be prepared for that. You have to go through this cocoon process. So slowly but surely, as you undo the ego, you'll notice that your experience starts to change. Maybe your body will start to feel lighter. Maybe it'll start to feel more like the dream figure that it really is, instead of this thing that you have to carry around. Maybe it'll be more difficult to hurt it. Over the years, I've been in a couple of small accidents, and I got hurt, not seriously, but I got hurt, and it should have hurt, and it didn't. And I thought, well, that's strange, that should hurt. But it didn't. Now, what happens is that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I'll hit my elbow or something and it does hurt. So what happens is you go back and forth at first. But there will be times when your body should hurt and it doesn't. And it's also true psychologically, because there will be things that will bother you. Like I used to be very bothered by this person that would come into the room. They used to always rub me the wrong way. There are certain people who bother you, and and then one day, and I would practice forgiveness, and the person doesn't have to be there for you to practice forgiveness on them. You can do it anytime that person comes up in your mind. And then one day this person came into the room. I was working in a band with this person. And one day they came in, and I was ready to be upset, and I wasn't. And I wasn't upset at all. That person didn't bother me at all. And I thought, that's strange. I hate that person. Why aren't I upset? And the reason that I was upset was because my mind was getting into the habit gradually of practicing forgiveness. And what happens is you reach a tipping point where you get so used to practicing forgiveness that you would actually miss it if you don't do it.
Right.
And if you miss it when you don't do it, then you know that it's become a part of you. So these are things that happen gradually over time, because you're kind of like retraining, your mind. This is a course in mind training, and it says something pretty provocative. It says that an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. Well, that's saying that 99% of the people in the world are accomplishing basically nothing with their spirituality, whether they have one or not. And if you don't, train the mind, it's going to run wild, like an animal. You have to train it because the ego will run wild. So you have to undo it gradually. And that is a matter of motivation. And that's something that you have to supply. It's kind of like, if you want to be a good piano player, there's really only one thing that's going to make you a good piano player. And that's if you sit there every day and practice.
Right.
And the course is no different. You have to be determined to practice every day, even if you're not very good at it at first. When you sit down to play the piano at first, you suck.
Right.
But that doesn't stop you if you really want it. If you really want it, then you will practice every day. And after a year or so, instead of fumbling around where your fingers don't know where to go, slowly but surely, they do know where to go. And you do get more comfortable doing it. And you do get better and better. So after 5 years, you could be really good. After 10 years, you could be excellent. But you've got to really want it, or else you're not going to sit there in the first place and practice. And the course is like that. You have to really want it. It takes a year of the workbook or more. It took me almost a year and a half to do the workbook the first time. But slowly but surely, if you persevere, then you get more used to thinking with the Holy Spirit than with the ego. It's kind of like a deprogramming of the ego. People hear the word mind training and they worry a little bit because to them it sounds like brainwashing or something. And what they don't realize is that they've already been brainwashed.
Right.
They've already been brainwashed by the ego.
Right.
And the course is like deprogramming. The course describes the ego thought system as a delusional system. Einstein described our experience as kind of like an optical delusion of consciousness. So we have to get used to the idea that what we're seeing is not true, that it's a trick.
Right.
It's kind of like in the Matrix, where they say that the Matrix exists to pull the wool over your eyes to prevent you from seeing reality. Well, that's exactly what the ego has done. It's made up the smoke screen that's kind of like a veil over the truth. The truth hasn't gone anywhere. The truth is still here. Heaven is still here right now. It hasn't gone anywhere, but it's out of people's awareness. And by undoing the ego with a certain kind of forgiveness, that's how you undo those blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And when the Course talks about love's presence, it's talking about the entire kingdom of heaven, which is your natural inheritance. And you don't have to earn it. It was given to you by God as a gift. If somebody gives you a Christmas present, you don't have to earn it. It's yours. But you do have to awaken to it. You do have to undo the ego in order to see it. It's like the Gospel of Thomas, 2,000 years ago, the disciples. We went up to Jesus and we said, when will the kingdom come? And he said, well, it will not come by watching for it. It will not be said, behold here or behold there. Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth and people do not see it. Well, the reason that they don't see it is because it's out of their awareness, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. And by undoing the ego and letting the Holy Spirit start to dominate your mind in a voluntary sort of way, because it is more fun to have your mind influenced more by the Holy Spirit than the ego. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you do become aware of heaven's presence, of God's presence. And eventually you're shifting identities from your false identity of being a body, which is the ego's great miscreation, to the idea of being what you really are, which is the spirit. But let's remember one more thing. When the Course talks about the word spirit, when it uses the word spirit, it's not talking about an individual spirit. That's the ego's domain. Like I have a soul, an individual soul. Well, that's still a separation idea. The Course says that spirit is not a partial attribute. It's not part of it, it's all of it. It's perfect oneness. Once you get up to the level of spirit, it's all the same. So according to the Course, heaven is the awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else. So, once you get up to that level of spirit, it's all the same. Words like God, Christ, Spirit, Holy Spirit, Jesus, anything on the level of spirit is really all the same. And we only need those words to help us get there. You could say that that 500,000 words that you find in A Course in Miracles are actually meant to get us to a place that is beyond all words.
Right.
But that's a process. So I forget what your question was, but that's my answer.
Well, it was beautiful. Thank you so much. I did have one question though. Everybody has different processes in this, but for you, when you're letting go of something like an upset that's come towards you, is it, with me, I just ask Holy Spirit to take it away. I mean, is that your process also?
Yeah, that's an important part of it. I think it starts off where, forgiveness is kind of like broken down into 3 parts, but eventually those ideas all blend into one. And it becomes like an attitude, an attitude of forgiveness, that miracle readiness that the first 50 miracles principles talks about. It becomes such a part of you that you're ready to forgive. So your mind is already in the habit of forgiveness. Remember, also in that first 50 principles, it says miracles are habits. So your mind's being retrained to, instead of getting into the habit of judgment, which most of the world is in the habit of, you're getting into the habit of forgiveness, which is exactly the opposite way of looking at things. Now you're looking at things with the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. So to give you an example, let's say I'm out on the freeway here in LA and somebody cuts me off in traffic. Right there, I have a choice. You always have a choice. I can respond with the ego. Now, the Course says every response with the ego is a call to war. And war does deprive you of peace. Yet in this war, there is no opponent. What we're seeing is not true. We made it up. It's a projection that is coming from us. So one of the important elements of this is that you have to shift from being a victim of the world, where the world is being done to you, to think the way that people like Jesus and Buddha thought, because they understood that the world was not being done to them, that it was being done by them, that it was coming from them. When you do that, you're shifting to a position of being a cause and not effect, which is why the Course says this is a course in cause and not effect. This is a course of mind training. Mind is the cause. So now it says, seek not to change the world, seek rather to change your mind about the world. Now, there's an irony there, because when you change your mind about the world will change automatically, because now you're dealing with the cause. The thing is, your focus has changed. If you look at workbook lesson number 23, my thoughts are images that I've made. It explains how what you're seeing was actually made up by you. Those are your thoughts being seen in the form of images. Then at the end of the text, of course, it says, the images you make cannot prevail against what God himself would have you be. So these images are just that. They're not real people. And sometimes people are startled in workshops when I say that, but these people are not real people. They are images that you have made. And there's a reality just beyond the veil, just beyond that body. And what we want to do is think outside of the box. The Course is a very big teaching. So when that guy cuts me off in traffic, I said I had a choice. Well, if I find myself responding with the ego, because I could very easily, be tempted to give the guy the finger, right? Which I used to do. And oh, by the way, this is where I say the Course can be very practical, because what if he has a gun? I could be dead.
Right.
But I don't react with the ego. I stop myself and I'm alive. Well, that's a pretty practical outcome.
Right.
So right away, you can see how the Course can lead to some pretty good things instead of some pretty bad things. And I stop myself. That's the first step. Now, if I can stop myself, then I can go to what the Course calls the holy instant. That's when you choose the right teacher. Now I'm going to choose the Holy Spirit as my teacher instead of the ego. And the Holy Spirit is going to say something like, and by the way, all these ideas become an attitude, but the Holy Spirit would say something like, look, the reason that you were upset, even if it only lasted for a couple of seconds, the reason that you were upset was because you were making it real. If there's one thing that the Course is teaching, it's don't make it real. You're upset because you're making it real. But the Course says that instead of giving truth to our illusions, we need to give our illusions to the truth. We need to surrender our illusions to the Holy Spirit. So I was upset because I was making it real. Now I'm going to stop making it real. And that's when I can remember that I'm dreaming. That what I'm seeing is a dream, and the dream is not being done to me, it's being done by me. This is my dream. The Course goes to great lengths later in the text to emphasize that you are the dreamer of the dream, and that you can't wake up until you realize that you're the one who's dreaming. The Course says nobody can wake up from a dream that the world is dreaming for him. You have to remember that you're dreaming in order to wake up. Now, if you can do that, then you can forgive the person, not because they really did it, not because they really did something. The Course says we forgive our brother for what he hasn't done, because this is a dream and what we're saying is not true. So it's not that we're being generous or charitable, which it says right in the preface. It says we're forgiving that person, not because they really did it, but because they haven't really done anything, because we're the ones who made them up in the first place. That's why forgiveness is justified. If this world was real, forgiveness would not be justified. Forgiveness is justified because it's not real. So we forgive the person, and then you can go to the third step, which most Course students never do, because you have to remember that you have to replace the illusion with something. It's not enough to say that the world is an illusion. The world is an illusion. That will get you nowhere. You have to, first of all, do what the Course does, which is a very good job of changing that idea that the world is an illusion to the world being a dream that you will awaken from. And that awakening is enlightenment. And then you go to what the Course calls vision, with a capital V.
Right.
And I love that part of the text, the Forgotten Song. It talks about the vision of God's Son. And this is where you really need to think outside the box. There is a reality which we've already said is everywhere. So what you do is you overlook the body. You overlook what that person appeared to do. 2,000 years ago, Jesus, no matter how crazy people were acting, he would overlook it. If somebody was sick and he wanted to heal them, he didn't dwell on what kind of illness they had. And he says the exact same thing in the manual for teachers. He says at no time does the teacher of God consider the nature of the illness the person has. Why? Because, yeah, you'll notice it, but then you overlook the body. And the Course uses that word overlook many times, sprinkled throughout the Course. And what you do is you overlook the body, you overlook the craziness, you overlook whatever it is that they appeared to do, no matter how stupid or how ridiculous, you overlook all that. And you think of them as being what they really are and where they really are. So now in your mind, they are not a body, they are spirit, but not a partial thing. They are all of it, which means that they never left heaven, which is the principle of the atonement in the Course, that the separation from God never happened. It never occurred. And since they never left heaven, that's why they're innocent. And there's a good reason why you want to think that way. And that's because of the way that the mind works. Don't forget, the Course says, as you see him, you will see yourself. And it must be pretty important, because then it says, never forget this. In that person, you either find yourself or lose yourself. And that's because of the way that the mind works, because there's really only one mind. And if you could get down deep enough into the mind, if you could dig down, way down deep into the unconscious mind, you would find Carl Jung's collective unconscious. And you would discover that there's really only one mind. And there's really only one ego. Not that it's real. There's just one ego appearing as many. We look out there and we see 7.8 billion people and millions of choices and trillions of objects. And the truth is, no, there's really only one ego appearing as many. The Hindus used to describe it as the one appearing as many. And they understood that. And they also understood, and so did the Buddhists, that there is a changeless reality that is just beyond the veil. That reality does not shift or change. It's constant. And the Course teaches the same thing, except the Course identifies this constant thing that never changes as God. So the Course says whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Well, that narrows it down considerably.
Yes.
Because there isn't anything in the universe of time and space that doesn't shift or change, which means by definition that none of it is true. And that's why the Course is a purely non-dualistic teaching, because it's saying that only God is true, which is why the Course says be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. So there is this reality just beyond the veil, and that is how you want to think of people. And if you think of them that way, as being nothing less than God, your unconscious mind will interpret that to really be about you. Because your unconscious mind, which knows everything, because that's where the projection of a universe of time and space is coming from in the first place, it will interpret anything that you think about another person to really be about you. And that's a pretty sobering thought, because people wonder why they're depressed. They wonder why people commit suicide. They wonder why people are walking around so unhappy. Just look at the garbage they've been thinking about other people in the world their whole lives. And they didn't realize that all of those thoughts were really just going to them. And it will determine how they feel. It will determine how they feel about themselves. Ultimately, it will even establish their own identity, as they will see it and believe it is. In fact, in the last section, choose once again, it says, choose once again what you would have him be, knowing that every choice you make will establish your own identity, as you will see it and believe that it is. So you're actually, setting yourself up, first of all, for the way that you're going to feel. Are you going to feel more peaceful, or are you going to be miserable? Are you going to be clear-headed so that you can be open to the guidance of the Holy Spirit more and more? The word inspired comes from the words in spirit. The more in spirit your mind becomes, the more you can be guided through life by the Holy Spirit. And it can lead to some very practical, tangible things in the dream. That's not the purpose of the Course, but it does happen. It's like if you read the Song of Prayer, you'll see that it's not the purpose of the prayer to get the things that you think you need. It says that the secret to true prayer is to forget about the things you think you need. You let them go into God's hands. They become your gifts to him. And the Song of Prayer is a song of love and thanksgiving to God. And you forget about everything and you just get lost in God's love. But sometimes later on, a funny thing happens. In that section, the Course describes it as the echoes of God's love. Those echoes come to you in the form of ideas, inspired ideas that can tell you what to do and where to go. And looking back on my life, when I made the decisions, usually whatever I did eventually turned to crap. But if I listened to the Holy Spirit, if I really, put the Holy Spirit in charge of my day in the morning, and that doesn't have to take a long time. All you have to do is connect. The Course says that God can be joined with in an instant. You don't have to go through a big ritual. I used to meditate in Maine, just before Arden and Persa appeared to me. I would be meditating like an hour and a half a day. And I felt like I got really good at it, but I don't have to do that anymore. I will do it for like 5 minutes now when I have the time. If I don't have the time, let's say I'm on the road, I have to do a workshop. I'm running out the door of the hotel. I'll just say, hey, Jesus, you and me, right? All you have to do is think of it and you're connected. That's all it takes.
Right.
And yeah, you can take time to quiet your mind too. And that's wise, because the more you quiet your mind, you kind of like get in control, because the ego is going to give you these interfering thoughts. And when you notice that, you can stop it. You have in your ability to stop those interfering thoughts. you may even say to the ego, stop.
Right.
You can do that. And it takes practice at first, but you can quiet your mind. You can make room for the Holy Spirit. But even though, prayer and, meditative type ideas, which you see later in the workbook, you notice that the end of the workbook, it involves kind of like an approach to God. It's like you're getting more used to being near God, because people don't understand that they have this unconscious fear of God, and they're not aware of it because it's unconscious. I mean, if they were aware of it, then it wouldn't be unconscious. So it's like the Course is undoing and doing all these things at the level of the unconscious mind that we can't see. And all that we have to do is our part, which is forgiveness. And the Course says our part is actually pretty small compared to the Holy Spirit's part, which I'm sure is very annoying to the ego because we want to be important. But the Holy Spirit's job is bigger, and the Holy Spirit is healing our unconscious mind every single time you do this. If you're forgiving people, not because it's real, but because it's not real, and you have to remember to replace it with the truth. You have to replace it with something. A lot of things are good at describing the problem, and the Course does a better job than anybody of describing the problem, which is really separation. Just to interject, since I moved here to California, I have met billionaires who have more money than they could ever spend. And they will say to me, Gary, I still feel like something is missing. And I'll say to them, well, that's because there is something missing. And then I give them that quote from the Course. It says, a sense of separation from God is the only lack you really need correct. Right. If you could correct that one real lack, then all the others would take care of themselves, because you would never feel like you were lacking. You'd always feel like you were being taken care of. You'd always feel like you were being guided, and kind of like never alone, because you really are never alone. And sometimes this guy will get back to me a few months later and say, you know what, I think you're right. I feel different. It's the same circumstances, but I feel different because I don't feel alone. I feel like I'm starting to reconnect with my source. And it was that emptiness being caused by the idea of separation. And as soon as you start doing this kind of forgiveness, and as soon as you start doing the workbook of the Course, slowly but surely, you're starting to undo that idea of separation and get in touch with your innocence, which is a great experience. Because when I started doing the Course, I didn't even necessarily think that I was a good person. And slowly but surely, I've come to realize, hey, yeah, I'm a good person because I'm innocent, because I haven't really done anything, because I never left heaven. But the fastest way to get in touch with that is to see it everywhere, which is what Jesus did. So Jesus and Mary Magdalene, they would make no exceptions to this. No matter how stupid or crazy people acted, even violent, they would overlook the madness. They would overlook the body. They would overlook anything that the body did, because they would realize that that person was not a body. And they would understand just what the Course is saying. I am not a body. I am free. For I am still as God created me. But if you're still as God created you, then you're still the same as God, because God doesn't do different. Remember, heaven is the awareness of perfect oneness. And it does mean perfect, which means God is still perfect, which gives us a perfect home to go home to. So at first, a lot of these ideas are foreign to people. They don't like the idea that God didn't make the world. But I kind of like that idea, because I didn't like God when I was in my 20s. I watched both of my parents die, painful deaths. And I really questioned, how could a God allow such terrible things to happen to good people? And they were very good people. And later, when I learned that that this was not a creation of God, that God is still perfect love, and that what we're seeing was done by us, then it made me think differently about God. Then I realized, okay, I don't have to hate God anymore, because God is still perfect, and it really is love, and that gives me a perfect home to go home to. And what we're seeing here is not true. It's our dream, Sometimes it looks good because this is a world of duality where you have opposites. So sometimes it actually looks good, but eventually it'll turn to crap because you have both good and bad. You have both sickness and health. You have both life and death. You have both abundance and scarcity. That's a world of opposites. But the Course says, right in its brilliant introduction, the opposite of love is fear. But what is all-encompassing, which is obviously God, can have no opposite. So in heaven, there is no death. There's only life. In fact, the Course would go as far to say that there is no life outside of heaven. In fact, it does say that. There is no life outside of heaven. Where God created life, their life must be, which means that what we're experiencing here isn't even life. It's like a parody of life. And real life is in heaven. There's only life, no death. There's only abundance. There's only happiness. There's only joy. There's only safety. You can't be attacked in perfect oneness. And the cool thing is, it's actually possible for you to experience your perfect oneness with God, even while you appear to be here, even while you appear to be in a body, you can still make that connection. It's usually very brief. The Course calls it revelation. But of course, the Course doesn't use words the same way that other people use it. When the Course uses the word revelation, it's not talking about intellectual knowledge that's being given to you. It's talking about an actual experience of God. The Course uses the word knowledge in much the same way that the Gnostics use the word gnosis. It doesn't mean intellectual knowledge. It means direct experience of God. That was gnosis, according to the Gnostics. That's knowledge, according to the Course. We actually have that experience of your perfect oneness with God. And when that happens, and it can happen to anybody, you don't have to be spiritually advanced for that to happen to you. Sometimes the Holy Spirit will give you that experience just to encourage you, just to keep you going. Sometimes you may not need that experience. Maybe you already had that experience in a previous lifetime where you were a very spiritual person and you just don't remember that you already had that experience. By the way, when I talk about other lifetimes, I never use the word reincarnation. When I use the phrase lifetimes, I'm talking about dreams. These are serial dreams. So you dream that you're born. You dream that you have this strange life. It may be a really good life. It may be a terrible life, according to the world's judgment. But you dream that you're in a body. You're not in a body, not really. That's a trick. It's a sleight of hand. It's the ego's trickery. At one point, the Course says that the ego is ingenious. So the ego is very good at what it does. And it's very good at convincing you that this is you. That you are a body and that you're in a body and that you have an individual psyche and that this is really you. In fact, that's practically the Course's definition of temptation, which you find right at the beginning of that last section. Choose once again. It starts off by saying, temptation has one lesson it would teach in all its forms, wherever it occurs. It would persuade the Holy Son of God he is a body, born in what must die, unable to escape its frailty, and bound by what it orders him to feel. So that's the ego's number one game plan, to convince you that this is you. Now, the truth is, you're not in a body. You never have been. You never will be. It's a trick. And the body itself is an illusion. And you're still this perfect spirit that God created. But the way to get in touch with that is to undo the ego. So the basic steps is great, but I want to kind of emphasize, don't forget to think of people as what they really are and where they really are. And that doesn't mean you don't carry on a normal conversation with people. I can get together with the guys on Sunday and watch the football game and drink beer and, swear at the TV. And, I can have a good time along with the rest of the guys. But at the same time, I know the truth. I know that the outcome of the game has already been determined. That it's already over. The script is written. I'm having a dream. And the irony is that as you go along, because people think, oh, I'm going to lose my enjoyment of things because if it's all an illusion. No, that's not true. you don't lose your enjoyment of things. You end up enjoying things more. Why? Because there's guilt being removed from your mind by the Holy Spirit. Your mind is being healed. And when you have less guilt in your mind, you end up enjoying everything more. I enjoy listening to music just as much or more today than I ever did. So you're not going to lose your enjoyment of things. You'll notice that the Course doesn't talk about forgiving the beautiful sunsets. It doesn't talk about forgiving the art or the music that you like. It doesn't talk about forgiving the romantic walks on the beach. Its focus is on forgiving the negative emotions, because that's where the guilt is coming to the surface in your mind. That's why the Course makes such a big deal out of the fact that anger is never justified. Why? Because the secret of salvation, as it says, is but this, that you are doing this to yourself. So that's why anger is never justified. Once again, if the world was real, then anger would be justified and forgiveness would not be justified. But it's really the other way around. So I get carried away talking about the Course. I can't help it.
Great. Absolutely great. Thank you so much, Gary. That's amazing, man. I think, how much time do you have, buddy? We were going to stop this. We put it 12, but is it okay if we go over just slightly? Is that okay with you? Or
Yeah, that's okay.
Is it okay if I open the floor for questions for you?
Sure.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm just going to flip through here and see if anybody raises their hand if they have a question. For Mr. Gary, I don't see anybody.
There may be some hands that we don't see.
Yeah, maybe speak up.
Oh, there's one. We see one. We see one. Jamie has one up there.
Okay. Go for it.
Whoops.
Oh,
she muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
We got
can you
you.
hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as you saw earlier, I had our youngest little one who's 6, kind of peeking her head on the call earlier, and I was able to listen to some of your answers, and the points that stood out the most were discipline of mind. We're only seeing ourselves and the innocence, and we're not separate from any of it. And I had such a big question. For the first time in my life, I had to write it down, so please forgive me. So education is a hot topic right now. And in these massive changing times where we've had to do distance learning and unlearning and school and unschooling and now we're doing hybrid lessons. 13 years ago, my first 2 children of 3 were still quite young when my dad gave me a copy of The Disappearance of the Universe with the inscription along the lines of, "I wish I had taught you these concepts when you were young." In the past 10 years, I have studied the Course. My life has changed dramatically, and I have experienced countless miracles. But the greatest challenge has been to reconcile the Course, getting out of the dream, and parenting my children / myself in the dream, and more specifically, dealing with the direct contradictions of sending my kids to school for a largely ego education. I choose love and to set myself and my children free of the dualistic illusions of being separate from our one mind and all knowledge, and for me / them to follow their higher guidance above all else, which flies in the face of being normal and the whole education system. We are way past the 100th monkey for reading, writing, math, etc. So these kids should already know it by now. But I don't want my kids to just be normal. I want them to be awakened and extraordinary, just like I want myself to be awakened and extraordinary and free. So how are we supposed to raise our children and free ourselves to stay out of this ego trap, yet still function as normal in this world?
Yeah, a lot of people, ask that question. And you used the word, you used the word normal. I would emphasize, don't forget how to be normal. It's okay. Okay, sometimes the best thing that you can do for your children is let them learn how to be good, healthy egos. Because in this illusion, they're still going to have to get by. They're still going to have to take care of themselves. So give them a normal education. Do the best you can to let them learn about the world. Let them learn, how to make a living. In fact, the more money they have, the more time that they'll have to spend on this stuff. The harder they have to work, the less time they'll have to spend on this stuff. So, let them learn how to be successful. It's okay to be successful. It's okay to have a good time. It's okay to make money. It's not a sin. But at the same time, the best way that you can teach them is not by filling their heads with metaphysical ideas when they're kids. In fact, I'm not even sure if you're doing a teenager a favor by telling them that this world is an illusion, because they have things to deal with. They have enough problems. So what you want to do is teach them all the normal stuff. And yes, you teach them about the Course by living it. You teach them by example, because the day is going to come, in the distant future, when they're going to remember you. And they're not going to remember as much the things that you said as what kind of a person were you? What kind of a mother were you? How loving were you? How kind were you? How good were you to other people? How did you treat them? It's your qualities and your way of being that they're going to remember. That's what I remember the most about my mother. What kind of a person she was. And I love her for that. And they're going to love you for that. And yes, bring them along slowly. Let them learn the normal things. And once in a great while, you have a child prodigy who's a spiritual genius who's going to be talking about this stuff all the time. And that's okay too, but you'll be able to tell by the kinds of questions that they ask you. If they're really interested in this, they will ask you questions about it. If they're not asking you questions about it, then let them alone. Give them a break for a while. Maybe when they graduate from college, you can give them a copy of A Course in Miracles as a graduation present.
Now undo everything you've learned.
Well, that's what the Course does. Ken Wapnick said that you spend the first half of your life setting up the classroom, and you spend the second half of your life forgiving it.
Right.
So we don't want to avoid the classroom altogether.
Eventually, through forgiveness, you will undo the classroom. But I think that you have to be prepared, to get by in the world. I mean, you can always try to escape the world by going to Nepal and meditating on top of a mountain somewhere. But even that is doing something, and you're still going to have to forgive everything that's in your mind. I used to tell people, if you go off on a desert island and live by yourself, you're still going to be in conflict with somebody, and that person that you're going to be in conflict with is going to be you and everything that's in your mind. So you're still going to have to forgive it anyways. So I remind them that A Course in Miracles was given in New York City, right? The epitome of complexity. And I think it was making a statement. It's like you can attain enlightenment not by going off and meditating for 20 years. You can attain enlightenment by forgiving the things that are right there in front of your face. You don't have to go anywhere. The perfect lesson, according to the Manual for Teachers, is always right there in front of you, but this is seldom recognized. So I try to remember that my perfect forgiveness lesson is right there in front of me. And, the sooner that I forgive it, the less I will suffer. The longer I go without forgiving it, the more uncomfortable I will be. But the sooner I forgive it, then the less I will suffer. Because, let's say that somebody comes on TV that I don't like, like some politician or something comes on the TV screen who I don't like. Well, if I'm judging that person, who's the one who is suffering? Right. It's me. That person on the TV doesn't even know that I'm watching. Right. They're probably having a good time. I'm the one who's suffering. So, forgiveness is always something that you're doing for yourself, and your children are going to learn that eventually. But the great thing about the Course is that it's not asking you to give up your life. It's just asking you to look at it with the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. And you can still have your, dreams, but you know that they're dreams. And you can still have your fantasies and your goals and your possessions and your money and your sex and the things that you want to do. It's just that now you're kind of like what the Course calls above the battleground. Now you're looking at it differently in a way that's going to lead to peace instead of conflict. And by the way, you're making a contribution to world peace when you do that, because that's the only way that this world is ever going to live in peace, is when the people of the world have inner peace. because the Course says that what we're seeing is an outer picture of an inward condition. And you will always have conflict and war and violence and terrorism and murder and crime out there on the screen until the day comes when the people of the world have inner peace. Then what they will see out there on the screen will be peace. But that's the only way that that will ever happen. So we're actually doing something bigger here than we realize.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, John, it looks like John has a question for you there, Gary.
Sure.
And then I think Eli also. So.
Okay.
All right, John. Oh, can't hear you, John. You're muted or something, I think, buddy.
I didn't mute him.
Still no. John, we still don't have you, buddy. Sorry.
Can he find his unmute button?
Okay, let me hit the unmute
there he
button
is.
again.
Okay, there we go. All right.
I had a remote speaker on, and it was interfering with it. Gary, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at.
Yeah,
I want to thank your book, Disappearance of the Universe. It saved my 3 Course in Miracles book from it sheltered it from the fireman's water when my 5th wheel caught on fire about a month ago. And so we aired it out, so the book is still good. But thank you for sheltering the Course in Miracles book.
Sure.
Something you touched on earlier was about how we see ourselves. And I share with people that I see you perfect, whole, and complete as God created you, as I see myself. And I said, but they associate that with the body. You know, you're not a body, you're a spirit. And that's the hard thing, I think, for people to understand. They want to relate that to the body. And I'm not a body. I don't know what I am. I'm up in heaven somewhere hanging out. Me and Jesus, God, and all the rest of you guys. But thanks for sharing all your information in your book. And I'm a fan. Lily Dale, we met up there many years ago.
Yeah.
I want to thank you.
Well, thank you, John. And you know, that whole thing about not being a body. I live in Hollywood, right? And so sometimes I think of myself as being an actor playing the part of Gary. You know, I'm not really Gary. I'm an actor playing the part of Gary. So I don't confuse myself with being Gary. And, you know, I know some actors and they don't get confused. You know, they don't think that they're the the part that they're playing. They know who they are, but they don't think of them as being that. So the only variation is that I know that I'm actually spirit and that I'm in home with God. The Course says you are at home in God, dreaming of exile, but perfectly capable of awakening to reality. So I know where I really am, but I'm playing this part called Gary, but it's not important what happens to Gary, you know, because it's not me, you know, it's not real. And slowly but surely you start to actually feel like you're something bigger, you know, something bigger than what you thought you were. And I hate to break it to people, but the body isn't going to last forever anyway. You know, people say, oh, gee, do I have to give up my money? Do I have to give up my relationships? I got news for them. You know, 30, 40 years from now, they're going to have to do that anyway. Right. They're going to have to give up the body anyway. They're going to have to give up everything anyway, because the body is not going to last forever. So why not spend the time that you have while you're here building something that will last forever? You know, building your house upon the rock instead of on the sand, you know, as Jesus used that metaphor. You know, building your house upon something that is constant, and something that is constant is something that you can depend on, where something that is transitory like the body is not something that you can depend on. So, you know, it's kind of like now we're investing our belief where belief is warranted. You know, this world is not worthy of our belief, but God and his kingdom are worthy of our belief. And wherever you invest your belief, that is what will affect you. You know, Jesus says in the Course, he says, the poor are merely those who have invested wrongly. And they are poor indeed, because they're so into the world that the world can hurt them. but it's possible to get to the place where the world cannot hurt you. And that's a wise place to be, because now you're putting your faith in something that you know can last forever instead of something that's going to be gone soon.
Right. Cool. All right. Thank you, Gary. Let's see. We got another Eli. Are you ready with your question?
I am. Gary, my question, for one, I want to say I talked to you maybe a month, maybe a bit more than that ago, and you are looking younger from then to now. Your whole face looks calmer. I'm amazed. Anyway, I am on my third or fourth read of the course and doing the textbook for the second time. But I just went through my shelf of books and I came across this book, and it's called Take Me to the Truth, Undoing the Ego. And I see you wrote the foreword of it. And I just wanted to mention it so that, because I find along with the course, reading the text, it is really helping me understand even more of what the course is saying. Could you add anything to that? Do you remember the book?
Sure. By the way, I like that movie that you're watching, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, it's on pause. I'll get back to it.
Yeah, that's a really good movie. Brings back a lot of memories too.
Yes.
Yeah, that book, Take Me to Truth by Nuke Sanchez. I did write the foreword. Yeah, she's good. She's kind of gotten away from Course in Miracles since then, and she's kind of like made up her own thing, which a lot of course teachers do. And I try to really stick to the course, but I was kind of like set up that way by Arden and Persa, because the conversations that we have in the books, they stick to the course so much that if I did something different, then people would come up to me and say, Gary, what the hell are you talking about? So it's kind of like I have to stick to the course now. So I've been set up in a good way. And I would say, yeah, there are certain books. I like to think that my books help people to understand the course and stick to it. Arden and Persa say that the reason that they keep coming back every now and then is to keep people focused on forgiveness. You might be surprised to hear this, but I meet students who have been studying the course for 5 years, 10 years, who don't really know that it's about forgiveness. And that's because the resistance to doing this on the part of the ego is tremendous, because this is death to the ego. And on some level, the ego knows that. And it will come up with 1,000 different ways to stop you from doing this. That's why I say you have to have perseverance. But eventually, the ego can't win against the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit has a perfect plan. And the ego has one disadvantage. It's insane. But then, here we are doing the course, and the course pays us a great compliment. Jesus says in the course, you are no longer wholly insane. And I thought that was very generous of him to say that. I said, oh, yeah, great. I'll put that on my resume. I'm no longer wholly insane. That'll make them want to hire you. But the thing is, whatever it is, I tell people, whatever clarifies it for you, great. But sooner or later, it's got to come down to forgiveness. And once you understand that the miracle in A Course in Miracles is this kind of forgiveness that the Course is teaching, where you don't make it real and where you replace it with the truth, that is the miracle. And once you understand that, you see it everywhere, all through the Course. The Course talks about forgiveness from beginning to end. And people don't want to see it. So they get sidetracked and they become fascinated by all the metaphysical ideas in the Course. And they are fascinating. But at the same time, it's always going to come back to forgiveness, which is why you'll notice in my books that Arden and Persa and I talk about a lot of different things, all kinds of things. Sometimes some pretty far out things. But sooner or later, they always bring the conversation back around to forgiveness, because that's what the Course is really about. And in the Course itself, it's like a work of art. It's like classical music or something. You have the Course describing the problem, describing the ego, sometimes in some pretty graphic terms. sometimes in some pretty disturbing ways. And that can even upset you a little bit. But then you'll notice that every single time there'll come along a paragraph or two and it resolves the problem. It brings up the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit's solution. So it always has a resolution to the problem. And that's part of the beauty of the Course. It doesn't just describe the problem, it gives you a solution to the problem. And it actually gives you a way home. It gives you a way out. So the Course doesn't just push the outside of the envelope. The Course is outside of the envelope. It's sending us a message from outside the system, from outside the dream. I don't believe that the Course could have been written by a human being. I don't believe that the Course could have been given to us from within the mistake, from within the error. I think it comes to us from outside of the dream. Just like if you have a child in bed at night and they're dreaming, well, you can't see their dream, but you know where they really are. They're safe at home. And if you whisper to them, they can actually hear you in their dream, even though you're not in their dream. You can still be heard in their dream. And that's what the Holy Spirit is like. The Holy Spirit is not making the dream real, and the Holy Spirit is not in the dream, but the Holy Spirit can be heard by us in the dream. And the Holy Spirit is trying to get us to wake up from the dream so that we can be where we really are, but a place that's out of our experience right now, but that will return to our awareness and become our permanent reality. And when we wake up, we'll be with God forever. So there aren't a lot of books out there that stick to the Course. Cindy is releasing her second book in the next week or so. And she has really come to stick to the Course like a laser beam. And I'm really happy with her. And, I'm not kidding. If she didn't stick to the Course, I wouldn't be able to work with her. I wouldn't be able to work with anybody who didn't stick to the Course, but she really does. And so does her sister, Jackie. Jackie's written a book that's really good. So you might want to read Cindy's two books, Jackie's book. Of course, Ken Wapnick sticks to the Course. Like people will say to me, oh, if Ken was so enlightened, then why did he die? Well, I hate to break it to them, but everybody is going to die. Even me. Helen died, the scribe, when she was 71. Ken died, he was 71. In a year and a half, I'll be 71.
Don't go anywhere yet.
I'm waiting to see how many years I have left. But you never know, I might outlive them. But, it doesn't matter. Even the moment that you're going to die has already been determined. The question is, what are you going to do in between now and then? How much are you going to forgive? How much are you going to undo your ego? And every time that you do this, there's a healing taking place. And I mentioned the Song of Prayer. It talks about death. And it talks about a higher realm of death. How it's a better experience if there's been real healing in the mind. And it's a better experience. In fact, it's a great experience. So there are a lot of reasons why you want to forgive as much as possible. And if there's nothing to forgive, if you're having a good time, then you don't have to go looking for things to forgive. The Course says if you're with a brother and there's nothing to forgive, then you should celebrate. So now you know what everything is for. There was a time in my life when I didn't know what anything was for. Now I know what everything is for. If I don't like something, then that's for forgiveness. If I'm having a good time, then I should celebrate. So it's consistent. If somebody's calling out for love, by acting crazy, well, the proper response is love. If somebody's not acting crazy, if they're acting sane, then the proper response is still love. And there you see the consistency of the Holy Spirit. It's always the same. You can't miss with forgiveness. You cannot do it, and that's not a sin either. It's just that forgiveness is really ultimately for you.
Okay, can I just add a little something for the woman who was talking about her children?
Sure.
They're going to be fine. It was my daughter who introduced me to Gary's books, and that set me on the road to the Course in Miracles. So kids are wonderful. They'll get there.
That could be a flip-flop. Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's always amazed me in families first of all, the most people that I've met have been introduced to my first book by their mothers. It's amazing to me how many moms introduce their grown children, to my books and A Course in Miracles. And yes, sometimes also children will introduce their parents.
She introduced me.
Cindy was introduced to my first book by her mom. In fact, I met Cindy's mom just before I met Cindy. And, we became a family eventually. And, you should see us at Thanksgiving, right? Me and Cindy, her mom, Jackie and Mark, her husband, all 5 of us, all we do all day is talk about A Course in Miracles at Thanksgiving.
Sounds like
all
our
these
family.
other families, they're arguing about politics and, and stuff. And we're talking about A Course in Miracles and aliens and UFOs. Because Mark's really into that. Yeah. But,
hey, Gary, real quick, we got 2 more people asking some questions. If that's okay. We got
sure.
Judith and then Lori. So Judith, go ahead.
Hi, Gary. We missed you in Melbourne in March.
Yeah, I really wanted to come.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
I know. And I'm in Orlando. And my I'm looking, I may not have a question here, but I think I'm looking for a validation, and I think you can extrapolate some information for me. My 5-year-old granddaughter was diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago. And when I got the news of the diagnosis over the phone, I immediately heard there is no order of difficulties and miracles. So I knew that that would be my mantra. And I proceeded in the 6 months to go about being as human and normal as I could with what this little one was experiencing. But I felt when I was in, so there's 2 sets of grandparents that are local enough to be there to help, because there's a 1-year-old in the family. So a set of us are there at all times, and it got to be a routine of 2 weeks there, 2 weeks not. And I found myself in the 2 weeks that I was there just so focused on the peace of God around her, around them. And at the same time, my son, whose daughter it is, was flipping out in fear and was making and directing it at me. And so there was this pushing away of me that I just literally had so many forgiveness opportunities underneath that iceberg that I just kept weeping and wailing and sorrowing. And then finally I got to the bottom of it, and I just realized it never had anything to do about him. It was always, like you said, our own forgiveness. And yet I would still find the peace to walk into their home and be there and just be fully present to my granddaughter, who seems to be only fully present because she's had so many invasive procedures already in 6 months. And I'm a ovarian cancer survivor, so I know what that feels like. And I'm just amazed at how she seems to forget what the previous 3 weeks did or was like. And here she is present with me. I think you have something for me that I just had to share that to. I think the day that I shifted just loving my son as he was in his fear. That day I heard, stop outsourcing my guidance. And so I heard that again, and I just like, no, you have something for me. So what do you got?
Well, how is she doing, the 5-year-old with the cancer?
She's in 6 months. She had 5 rounds of chemo. She had a surgery, and none of that seemed to have made a difference. It's called a neuroblastoma, and it's from her lungs to her hips, all around her organs. And so they began new rounds of chemo with this immunotherapy that it's an antibody therapy. And in the first 2 rounds, they did images, and we just got the news on Tuesday that so there's a tumor and it was measurably reduced. There's cancer on the bone that went from a number of 21 down to 10, and there's cancer in the bone marrow that the last biopsy, it was below a 5. So there's movement towards this huge thing being in neuroblastoma. It has to mature. It will always be there, but it will mature and then not grow anymore. So that was good news. And I sometimes feel like I'm supposed to be more emotional or more sad, or and I'm not reacting like others in the environment around her. And I know better than to think that I'm cold or unfeeling about it. I just know there's no order of difficulties in miracles.
Okay, so when it comes to that, the cancer, when it comes to your relationship with your son, you have to remember that A Course in Miracles is not always easy. It's like the Course says that it's simple, because there are only 2 things to choose between. There's reality and there's unreality. And we're being asked to choose again. We're being asked to choose reality. But the Course doesn't say that it's easy. Yeah, it says that it's simple. In fact, it uses the word simple 158 times. But not once does it ever say that it's easy. And there are going to be things in life that are going to seem very, very difficult, maybe even impossible to forgive. Like the death of a loved one, or serious illnesses, or things like that. And you're doing, very well with the cancer, but at the same time, your relationship with your son, that sounds like it's pretty difficult, and I can see the emotion that you're feeling. So what you got to do is really try to get in touch with the Holy Spirit on this. It's not my job to tell you what to do. That's the Holy Spirit's job. My job is to help get you more in touch with the Holy Spirit, so that the Holy Spirit can tell you what to do. And what you do is you forgive these situations the best that you can. Remember that you're dreaming. If you are upset, remember that it's because you're making it real. And you want to stop making it real. Remember that you're dreaming. Switch to the Holy Spirit, and then realize the reality of the situation by overlooking the bodies and remembering what these people really are, whether it's your son or anybody. What they really are is not that body that you're seeing, but this perfect creation of God. Now, how can that be practical? It can be practical because by thinking of them that way, by thinking of them as what they really are and where they really are, the Holy Spirit can come into your mind more and actually give you guidance. Sometimes it'll be about how you should feel and how you should think. But once in a while, it will actually be guidance as to something that you can do, to help. Even though changing the world isn't the purpose of A Course in Miracles, you can be guided to very practical things that can lead you to actually help people. And that's good. As long as you're coming from a place of love, you can't go wrong. So I would emphasize to you, remember that what you're seeing is just something that's being presented to you by the ego, and that there is a truth that is just beyond the veil, including your son. And what he really is this perfect creation of God. And then the Holy Spirit can help you in the way that you should think about that in any situation that comes up. That's why it's so important to keep forgiving, undoing the ego, and then the Holy Spirit becomes more and more available to you. And the better you can hear the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will guide you. The Holy Spirit will guide you through life. And you're never alone. And it's a great experience to get more and more in touch with the Holy Spirit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
And
Thank you.
Let me know how you like the rest of Bohemian Rhapsody.
All right, Gary, we got Lori next, and I think we'll end it there. Lori?
Okay. Hi, Gary. Wow, I'm so shocked that when I saw you, I was like, wow, because I met you back in Maine at a Unity church was it Wyndham? I don't know.
Yeah, it was in Wyndham.
Was it Wyndham?
Yeah. Right next to Portland.
Yeah. Wow. I don't even know what years that was. Very long time
It
ago.
had to be either 2003 or 2004.
Yeah. Okay.
I was there twice.
Okay. Anyway, so the course thing has been I have so many friends and we talk about the course all the time. Anyway, I'm not real versed at it, but I know it's about forgiveness, and I know that it's all of this is made up from our minds. It's not even real. This whole COVID thing has sent me, the mask thing, all of it, it seems like everybody's lost their damn minds. The common sense has gone. The news has taken over. People are zombies. What the heck? It's really I've been really feeling down. I can be okay and then go outside and see these people. And then there's judgment. It's judgment. I'm judging them for being stupid. That's the truth of it. What do you got to say? Give it to me.
Well, this whole thing is right up the ego's alley.
Oh.
This is exactly what the ego wants. The polarization that we're seeing in America, it's all based on separation.
Yep.
That's exactly what the ego wants. And the ego is very good at it. Don't ever underestimate the ego. But at the same time, remember, the ego can't win in the long run against the Holy Spirit. So what's our job in this whole thing? Well, if we don't forgive, who will? Really, I mean, if the Course in Miracles students won't forgive the whole situation, then who's going to? It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
So forgiving what? Who?
You're forgiving the whole thing, because as the Course teaches, there is no world. So I was watching the debate last night, right? And it's like, what do I have to remember? Well, if the Course says that there is no world, then there is no United States, right? There is no White House. There is no Congress. There is no Supreme Court.
There is no Biden or Trump.
There is, all these things that I'm seeing out there on the screen are a projection that has no reality. And my job is to be one of the people who will stand up and say, what we're seeing is not true, and only God is true. Which is why the Course says, once again, be vigilant only for God in His kingdom. Is that always easy? No. But we can do the same thing with this virus. People in the dream, yes, they appear to be dying, and they appear to be very sick. Our job, and this may seem a little heartless at first, but it's not. It's what the Course calls true empathy, instead of false empathy. It's true empathy where we overlook the body and we don't think of those people as being victims. We think of those people as being these perfect creations of God that they really are. So the way the Course describes the teacher of God, it says they see the dream figures come and go, but they are not deceived by what they see, because they know that there is this perfect spirit behind the appearance, behind the illusion. And that's how we want to think of them. Now, does that mean that we don't help or that we don't do our part? No, but we're going to be doing it with love. If you're practicing forgiveness, and if you're thinking of people as being these perfect creations, then you're going to get the message of the crucifixion, which Jesus says in that section. The message is teach only love, for that is what you are. If you're really doing forgiveness, then you are going to be coming from a place of love. That'll happen automatically. You don't have to try to be love. You are love. All that you have to do is undo the false part of the mind that thinks that everything is separate and that you have to judge everything. So people want to wear a mask. You don't judge that. People don't want to wear a mask. You don't judge that either, even though it may look like they're endangering the health of others. You don't judge that. Your job is the way that you're looking at things. And if you feel guided by the Holy Spirit to wear a mask, then you should. On the level of form, the level of the dream, that's the government's job to tell people whether or not they should wear a mask. You don't have to do the government's job. Your job is to do your job. And your job is to follow the advice of the Holy Spirit. And you can hear that advice better and better if you forgive. And you can forgive anything, because it's all equally untrue. The reason that the Course says that there is no order of difficulty in miracles is because you can't make a distinction between this little thing over here that looks like it needs to be forgiven and this big thing over here that looks like it needs to be forgiven. Why? Because neither one is true. And that's why Jesus said to Helen one New Year's Eve, he said to her, make this year different by making it all the same. And I remembered that last New Year's Eve, right? And I had no idea what a crazy year 2020 was going to be.
No one did.
I hope that you'll pardon my language, but this has been one fucked up year.
No kidding.
And that's why the Course is teaching there is no order of difficulty in miracles, because the Course knows that we are going to be presented with some things that are going to be very difficult to forgive, and it's going to seem big. The Course says, what is an idol? It must be something that is bigger. So the ego is going to keep coming up with different things and bigger things and stranger things for us to forgive. And most people won't forgive. They'll be tricked by the ego. But as a Course student, our job is to not be tricked by the ego and to be able to forgive anything, no matter what.
No matter what.
And that is possible. The Holy Spirit would not give us a job to do that wasn't possible. It is possible. Is it always easy? No, but it is possible. And if you really want the results of the Course, if you want to awaken in God, and by the way, the Course would be worth doing, even if you didn't awaken in God. It would be worth it for the peace, and for the calmness and for the inspiration and for the happiness that comes along with forgiveness. That alone would be enough to do the Course. But then as you go along, you start to realize that you are slowly but surely awakening in God. You are slowly but surely awakening to what you really are and where you really are. And the Course says in the manual that nothing for the teacher of God can compare, nothing in this world can compare to the glorious remembrance of what he is. You can actually remember God. The Course says, and I love the fact that the Course starts off at the beginning with its most advanced ideas. It even says in the preface, holding no one prisoner to guilt, we can remember God. So, and then, it is like a hologram all the way through, and it keeps repeating these ideas until you finally get them, hopefully.
Yeah.
And some people don't. That's why, I tell people, look, there's nothing special about me. I would not have understood A Course in Miracles if it wasn't for my teachers. I would have done what most people do. I would have made up my own interpretation of the Course, and then I would have found quotations in the Course that supported what I already believed. And no, the Course is not teaching us what we already believed. This is more like Monty Python, and now for something completely different. And it really is completely different. But you can forgive anything. And this whole virus thing and all the polarization that you're seeing on your TV screen, it's all for forgiveness if you use it for what it's for, according to the Course. And the Course asks us that question several times. What is it for? What is it for? What it's for is forgiveness. And if you use it for what it's for, then eventually you're not only going to get the good benefits of doing it, but as you go along, you're actually going to wake up in God. And that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate experience. And when you start to get kind of like glimpses of it as you go along, then you'll realize that you're really onto something and that it's even more worth doing, and you get more excited about it as you go along.
Oh man, thank you so much, Gary. Oh my gosh. And both of you guys, that question was wonderful too, because of course that's everywhere right now, right? So Gary, before we end here, do you have any workshops coming up? Are you working on any more books? How's Art in Persia? What's going on?
Let me see. Cindy and I are doing an online workshop 2 weeks from tomorrow. It's a Saturday and Sunday. And I'll put information about that at Facebook and also Twitter, and I'll send out an email about it. It's 2 all-day things. So it'll be about 5 hours a day. And we're going to really get in depth into forgiveness, personal examples of doing it, and all kinds of things. And Cindy has a lot of insights that are personal, so do I. So that's one thing that we're doing. I'm not doing too many in-person things. As I said, I was going to do 20. I've only done 2 this year. The virus didn't permit it. Hopefully next year, things will be better. We do have an in-person workshop scheduled for the spring, the first day of spring in San Antonio. That's March 20th, I believe. And, they'll get a vaccine eventually. And, I don't think that next year is going to be normal, but I think the year after that, we're going to be getting more and more back to normal. But I think that we will do some in-person things next year. So I'll be updating my schedule in the same ways that I'll be letting people know about this workshop. In November, we're doing a lot of online things. And I just did an interview for Gaia TV. So that's on. I'm going to be doing more television in the future. And I'm looking forward to that, because anything that makes people more aware of my books and more aware of A Course in Miracles, that's fine with me. And Cindy has her new book out coming this week. I think that our book that we're doing together about relationships will be out. Hopefully, we're shooting for Valentine's Day. And as soon as that's done, which it should be within a couple of months, then I'm going to start to focus on my 5th book with Art in Persia, because they have told me that we're doing a 5th book. They did make 1 appearance so far for that book. That's how I know what it's about. I can't give away the title, but I can tell you that it's about going home. It's about completing the job. It's about going all the way home. And I think people are going to be as excited about that as I am. So they did tell me in the 4th book that it would be possible for me to not have to relive that lifetime 100 years from now in Chicago, where it would actually be possible for me to wake up in this lifetime, because really all that we're doing is reviewing mentally that which has already gone by, according to the Course. It's kind of like watching a movie, and you can get up and walk out of the movie theater anytime you want, and it's not going to affect the movie, because the movie is just a projection. So the other people in the movie theater are going to keep watching the movie, and they're going to keep seeing the same thing, but you don't have to stay there. You can get up and leave. And it doesn't affect the movie that people are watching. It took me a while to understand that, but any of us could leave at any time. So that's enlightenment, because it's totally outside of the system. It doesn't take place within the system. It takes place within the mind, and the mind awakens to something that is completely outside of the universe of time and space.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Gary. This has been such a
Can I
wonderful
say something before we end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
I just want to ask, my name is Mary, and I'm blind, Gary, and I just want to ask you and other authors to keep it in mind that we who are visually impaired have a hard time with written books, and if you can seek having them recorded either by Learning Ally, it's called, in Manhattan, or the Library of Congress will record them, or other places. There are several others that record for the blind and dyslexic. It would be a big help. I've only been able to get a hold of a couple of your books that have been recorded, but I'm on a waiting list as they get to that way of accessing them, then I can and I do. But just to keep it in mind, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. By the way, all 4 of my books have been recorded. They're available at Amazon, and you know, if anybody can't afford them, then I'd be happy to send them a subscription. They don't actually send you CDs anymore. You download it from Amazon, and you can listen to it on any device. But all 4 of my books have been recorded. They are available at Amazon. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th books we just recorded last year, a year ago, in 2019. They weren't available before that. Your Immortal Reality, Love Has Forgotten No One, Lifetimes When Jesus and Buddha Knew Each Other. We recorded all 3 of them here in Hollywood, and Alicia Skye does the voice of Persa. A guy named Gavin Layton does the voice of Arden. I play myself. I auditioned several people, but I chose me. And you know, so those 3 are the same voices. Now, The Disappearance of the Universe was recorded quite a while ago in 2005. And that has the voice of Doreen Virtue playing Persa. And since then, she has, you know, completely left the Course in Miracles and spoken out against it, and it's really weird. But that's okay. You know, that's once again separation. You know, that's the ego at work, and that's okay. But the thing about that recording is that it's abridged. The other 3 books are unabridged. You get the whole thing. The Disappearance of the Universe, when we recorded it, Hay House, the publisher, didn't want to do the whole thing, so it was abridged. So what I would like to do with Alicia and Gavin is I would like to re-record The Disappearance of the Universe and have it unabridged. So it would be twice as long as the recorded version that's available right now. So I'm trying to talk Hay House into that, and hopefully we'll do it in the next few months, and then people will be able to get the whole thing instead of just part of it. And when we do the 5th book, that'll be recorded too. So if you have any trouble finding them or getting them, or if you need some help, I'd be happy to do it. Just send me a message by Messenger at Facebook, and you know, I'll help you get a hold of those things.
I can help you with that, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you again, Gary. This has been such a wonderful reflection, and my goodness, thank you so much. So much love to you. And we're
You too. You know, I've really enjoyed this, and you can tell I love talking about the course. So yeah, it's been fun for me.
Yeah, hopefully we can do a part 2. There's so many sci-fi questions I have about all the stuff you have to say about that. So hopefully in the future we could do a part 2 to this. That would be wonderful.
Well, the world's going to end in January, so don't worry about it.
Oh, we don't have to worry about it. Oh, well, there we go.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I did notice that there's going to be an asteroid flying by the Earth on Election Day, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Nice. Of course there will be.
It's supposed to be the closest one that's ever come to Earth without hitting the Earth. They don't think it's going to hit the Earth, but you never know. So we'll see.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. All right. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Much love to you, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Love you guys.
Yeah, love you too, buddy. Love you guys.
Okay. We'll see you.
Thank you so much. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Kristen. Bye, Eli. Bye, Michelle.
James, will you please send me the info on the workshop he's going to be having next week?
I most certainly will.
Thanks much. Love you.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Love you too.
Bye, Steve.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Gary.
Bye.
Bye, Zeke. Love you, buddy. Bye, Cliff. See you later, bud.
Bye.
Bye, Eli.
Bye.
Yes, success, Christian.
Hey,
have a
movie
wonderful
time.
week.
Prepare yourself from the birth to the dirt. Prepare yourself for all it's worth. Prepare yourself from the birth to the dirt. Prepare yourself, the last ego on earth. Prepare yourself from the dirt to the birth. Prepare yourself from the birth to the dirt. The last ego